I raised my champagne glass, forcing the corners of my mouth into what I hoped looked like a gracious smile. Around our family's mahogany dining table, expectant faces turned toward me, Mum's practiced concern, Dad's distant politeness, and my sister Grace's barely concealed triumph. "I'd like to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my 30th birthday," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. "And thank you for reminding me exactly what not to do when I have a daughter of my own." The silence that followed was delicious. I'm Elizabeth. And this is the story of how I finally stopped being the family disappointment. 30 minutes earlier, I'd watched Grace unwrap an envelope containing a $10,000 check. "To invest in yourself, darling," Mum had cooed, while Dad nodded approvingly. Grace's perfectly manicured hands had trembled as she showed everyone the zeros, her eyes gleaming with tears of joy. Then came my turn. The envelope was thin, barely containing anything but a basic birthday card. Inside, written in Mom's flowing script, "We're proud you're surviving." What they didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that 14 days ago I'd been standing in a convenience store, scratching off a $5 lottery ticket with my car key. The clerk's eyes had nearly popped out of his head when he'd scanned it. "Miss, you need to go to the lottery office. This is a big one. $1.2 million big, to be exact." "Elizabeth, honey," Mum's voice cut through my thoughts, her tone dripping with artificial sweetness. "That's not a very grateful response to your birthday celebration." I took a slow sip of champagne. "You're right, Mum. Let me try again." I turned to Grace. "Congratulations on your investment fund. I'm sure you'll do amazing things with it." Grace shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Lizzie, it's not like that." "Like what?" I asked innocently. "Like every Christmas when you got designer clothes while I got practical items from Target? Like when Dad paid for your semester abroad while I worked 3 jobs to afford community college? Now, Elizabeth," Dad finally spoke up, his voice carrying that familiar note of disappointment, "you're being dramatic again. We've always treated you both equally." I laughed, actually laughed, and pulled out my phone. "Really? Should we scroll through some family photos? Count how many feature Grace versus how many include me?" "I think you've had enough champagne," Mum said sharply, reaching for my glass. I moved it away from her grasp. "Actually, I haven't had nearly enough. But don't worry, I can afford my own drinks now." "What's that supposed to mean?" Grace asked, leaning forward. I stood up, smoothing down my simple black dress, the one Mum had criticised earlier as trying too hard to be sophisticated. "It means I'm done pretending. Done smiling through the comparisons, the subtle digs, the constant reminder that I'm the difficult child." I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope of my own. Here's my birthday gift to myself. Inside was a printed copy of my resignation letter from the temp agency where I'd been working. I'd sent it that morning. Mum snatched it up, her eyes scanning the words rapidly. "You quit your job?" "Elizabeth, this is exactly the kind of impulsive behaviour we've been worried about." "Worried about?" I picked up my purse. "No, Mum. You've never worried about me. You've worried about what people might think of you for having such a disappointing daughter." "Where are you going?" Grace called as I headed for the door. I turned back one last time, taking in the scene. The expensive birthday cake no one had touched, the scattered wrapping paper from Grace's gifts, my parents' matching expressions of confusion and anger. "I'm going home," I said simply. "This is your home," Dad protested. I shook my head. "No, this is where I survived. There's a difference." I opened the front door, pausing in the threshold. "Oh, and Mum? That card you gave me. Proud I'm surviving. Don't worry. I'm about to do much more than survive." The door clicked shut behind me with a satisfying finality. In my car, I sat for a moment, watching through the window as they gathered in the living room, probably already spinning this into another story about unstable, dramatic Elizabeth. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie, my only real friend. "Did you do it?" "Yes," I typed back. "Phase 1 complete." "You're either crazy or brilliant," she responded. I started the engine, smiling at the thought of my new house keys sitting in my purse, keys to an ocean view property they didn't know existed yet. "Maybe both," I texted back, then turned off my phone. The night air was cool as I drove away from my childhood home, leaving behind 30 years of being the family scapegoat. They thought they were watching me break down. They had no idea they were watching me break free. 1 year earlier, I sat on the floor of my shoebox apartment, surrounded by cardboard boxes labelled office stuff. The layoff notice from my temp job was still crumpled in my hand. Third job loss in 18 months, not because I was bad at what I did, but because I was not quite the right fit for our culture. My phone rang. Grace's face lit up the screen. "Did you hear?" She bubbled before I could say hello. "I got promoted. Junior partner at the firm." "That's great," I managed, staring at the eviction warning taped to my door. "Mom and Dad are throwing a celebration dinner tonight. You'll come, right? I mean, unless you're too busy with your... What are you doing these days?" The familiar acid taste of humiliation rose in my throat. "Actually, I can't. I'm not feeling well." "Oh, Lizzie!" Her voice dripped with manufactured concern. "Is this like that time you couldn't come to my engagement party because you were sick? Mum says you do this when you're feeling jealous." I closed my eyes, remembering that night. I hadn't been jealous. I'd been in the emergency room with severe food poisoning. I'd shown Mum the hospital bracelet later, but she'd just smiled that knowing smile and said, "Sweetheart, there are healthier ways to get attention." "Grace, I have to go." "Wait! Before you do..." She paused dramatically. "I'm thinking of starting a lifestyle blog. You know, sharing my journey to success. Maybe you could help manage my social media. It would give you something stable." The phone slipped from my fingers. I let it fall. From the floor, I could hear Grace's voice getting smaller. "Lizzie, are you there? Mum was right. You always do this when people try to help." I picked up the phone and ended the call. Later that night, my laptop glowed with job listings I couldn't focus on. A knock at the door made me jump. "Elizabeth?" It was Sophie from the temp agency. "I brought wine and Thai food. Open up." I considered pretending I wasn't home, but Sophie had a way of seeing through my walls. I opened the door. "You look like hell," she said, pushing past me with bags of takeout. "Thanks. It's my new aesthetic." She poured generous glasses of wine and settled on my threadbare couch. "Want to talk about it?" "About how I'm 30, unemployed, and living in an apartment where the roaches have squatters' rights." I took a long drink. "Or about how my perfect sister just made junior partner while I can't even keep a temp job." "How about we talk about why you let them convince you you're the problem?" I stared at her. "What?" "Your family. They've got you believing you're this perpetual screw-up, but I've worked with you for years. You're smart, capable, and the only person I know who can organise a complete disaster into a functional system in under a day. Try telling that to my parents." I grabbed my phone, scrolling through old texts. "Here's Dad last Christmas. You've always been hard to love." And Mum, when I tried to tell her about my depression, "You're just attention-seeking again." Sophie grabbed my phone and read through more messages. Her eyes widened. "This isn't tough love, Elizabeth. This is emotional abuse." "Don't be dramatic," I said automatically, then caught myself using my mother's words. "Remember that project you managed last year? The one everyone said was impossible? You pulled it off in half the time. And got laid off 3 months later. Because you made the senior manager look bad by being too good." Sophie leaned forward. "When was the last time you did something just for yourself? Something that wasn't about proving your worth to them?" I thought about it. "I bought a scratch-off ticket last week. Mum always said gambling was for people too lazy to work." "And?" I threw it away without scratching it. Sophie stood up, rummaging through my trash until she found the crumpled ticket. "Here's what we're going to do. You're going to scratch this ticket, and whatever happens, tomorrow you're going to start living for yourself instead of their approval." I took the ticket, feeling ridiculous. "Fine." As I scratched off the silver coating, Sophie continued. "And you're going to stop answering their calls until you remember who you are without their voices in your head." The final number appeared under my coin. I checked it 3 times before looking up at Sophie. "Well?" she asked. I handed her the ticket wordlessly. Her eyes went wide. "Holy shit!" "Yeah." I started laughing, quiet at first, then louder, until tears ran down my face. "Holy shit!" Sophie grabbed my shoulders. "Elizabeth, do you know what this means?" I did. It meant freedom. It meant power. It meant never having to accept their version of my story again. I picked up my phone and typed out an email to the temp agency. I hereby resign my position, effective immediately. I have everything I need. Sophie watched me hit send. What are you going to do now? I thought about Grace's perfect life, Mom's careful manipulations, Dad's quiet dismissals. Now? I smiled, feeling something shift inside me. Now I'm going to show them what the family disappointment can really do. Ms. Elizabeth? Markey, my real estate agent, waved his hand in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows. What do you think about this view? I stepped closer, watching waves crash against the Northern California coastline. The 6-bedroom house perched on the cliff like a modern fortress, all glass and clean lines. It's perfect, I said. Especially since the trust name keeps me anonymous. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Running from something? More like running towards something. I turned to face the empty great room. How soon can I move in? Papers are ready whenever you are, though... He hesitated. Most clients bring family to see a purchase this size. I smiled. My family thinks I'm probably sleeping on someone's couch right now. Let's keep it that way. After signing the papers, I stood in my new master bedroom, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. I unpacked a single box, just candles and matches. Every night since winning, I'd lit a candle and made the same promise to myself. Never again would I let anyone dim my light. My phone buzzed. 10 missed calls from Mum, 15 from Grace, 3 from Dad. I turned it off and dropped it in a drawer. The next morning, I met with an interior designer. The theme is rebirth, I told her. Everything new. Nothing that reminds me of the past. She showed me samples of rich fabrics and bold colours, everything my mother would hate. Perfect, I said to each one. A week later, Sophie tracked me down at a coffee shop in the city. You ghost everyone for 3 weeks and think I won't find you. She slid into the seat across from me. You look different. I touched my newly shortened hair, dyed a shade darker than my natural colour. My clothes were simple but expensive. Cashmere sweater, designer jeans. Are you planning a comeback or a slow death? She asked bluntly. Neither. I pulled out 5 envelopes from my bag. I'm planning a wake-up call. Sophie picked up one of the cards. What's this? The first move. I showed her the messages I'd written, one for each family member. Poetic, mysterious lines that would make them question everything they thought they knew about me. Remember when Grace was 8, I said, and she broke Mom's favourite vase? I got grounded for a month, because I should have been watching her better. I sealed the first envelope. Mum's card says, some broken things can't be glued back together. Sophie read Dad's card. The harder to love, the harder they fall, but what if they learn to fly instead? You're going to drive them crazy, she said. That's the point. They spent years making me doubt my reality. Now it's their turn. And Grace? I handed her Grace's card. Inside was a single pressed rose petal and the words, Golden Children Tarnished Too. Damn, Sophie whispered. You're not playing around. I'm done playing their games. I stood up, gathering my things. Want to see my new house? An hour later, Sophie stood in my kitchen, mouth open. This is insane. In a good way. Watch this. I pressed a button and automatic blinds lowered across the windows. Total privacy at my fingertips. Your family would lose their minds if they saw this. They won't. I walked to the wine fridge and pulled out a bottle. But they'll hear rumours. Small town, big purchase. Someone's bound to talk. Sophie accepted a glass. What happens when they figure it out? They won't. The trust is ironclad, besides. I smiled. They'd never believe quiet, unsuccessful Elizabeth could pull this off. My phone buzzed in the drawer upstairs, a sound that barely reached us. Sophie raised an eyebrow. Aren't you curious what they're saying? I know what they're saying. Mom's telling everyone I'm having another episode. Dad's sighing about my attention-seeking behaviour. And Grace... I took a sip of wine. Grace is realising her perfect life isn't so perfect without someone to compare it to. Later that night, after Sophie left, I sat on my balcony with my ritual candle. The flame danced in the ocean breeze as I addressed the final envelope. This one to my mother's church group, where she'd spent years painting me as her cross to bear. Inside was a generous donation cheque from an anonymous benefactor with a note. In honour of Christine, who always said her greatest trial was her greatest blessing. Only Mom would understand the reference to her favourite phrase about me, but she'd never be able to prove it was from me, never be able to control the narrative. I sealed the envelope and held it up to the candlelight. Tomorrow I'd mail all 5 cards, each one a match struck against their carefully constructed reality. Your move? I whispered to the darkness, imagining their faces when the cards arrived. For years they'd made me feel like a ghost in my own life. Now I would haunt them properly. Look at this, Sophie said, thrusting her phone at me across my kitchen island. Grace's Instagram story played on the screen. My sister, less polished than usual, ranting about toxic positivity and financial pressure. Interesting. I sipped my morning coffee. The golden child's crown is slipping. There's more. Sophie scrolled through screenshots. She's been posting cryptic quotes at 3 a.m. Something about drowning in expectations. And look, she's selling her designer bags online. I leaned closer. The prices were desperately low for authentic pieces. The $10,000 didn't fix everything, did it? Your mum commented on every post, "Call me sweetie, and we can figure this out." Sophie looked up. But nothing about you disappearing for a month. My laptop chimed with a new email. From Mum, subject line, "Come home." Speaking of the devil, I muttered, opening it. "Dearest Elizabeth, we can start fresh. Whatever's troubling you, we'll work through it as a family. Grace misses you terribly. She's going through some changes and needs her big sister. Love, Mum." Sophie read over my shoulder. "That's surprisingly warm." "It's bait." I closed the laptop. "She's using Grace's problems to lure me back into the fold. Watch. If I go, it'll be my fault Grace is struggling. I abandoned her when she needed me. Are you going to respond?" I opened the laptop again and typed, "I'll come, but not as you remember me." "That's it?" Sophie asked. "That's enough to keep them wondering." I stood up and walked to my wall of windows. "Did you see Grace's boyfriend in any recent photos?" "No, now that you mention it." I smiled. The perfect relationship must have cracked too. She always posted those staged date night photos. My phone buzzed. A text from Marquise. "Thought you'd want to know. Your sister's realtor friend was asking about the Cliff House sale. Said she had a client interested in the buyer's identity." "They're getting closer," Sophie warned, reading over my shoulder. "Let them look." I texted back, "Maintain privacy protocols. Thanks for the heads up." Sophie scrolled through more of Grace's social media. "Oh, wow. Look at these comments on her latest post. Her friends are asking if she's okay. Apparently, she had some kind of meltdown at work." I remembered Grace's voice on my birthday. "Did you win the lottery or something?" She'd seen something in me that night, a shift in power she couldn't quite name. My email chimed again, this time from Dad. "Elizabeth, your mother's worried sick. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Grace needs support right now. Not more family drama. Dad." "Family drama," I read aloud, laughing. "That's rich coming from the man who told me I was hard to love every time I didn't meet his expectations." Sophie put her phone down. "Are you enjoying this? Watching Grace fall apart?" I considered the question. I'm enjoying watching the truth come out. The perfect daughter, the perfect family. It was all a performance. I just stopped playing my assigned role. And what role was that? The scapegoat. The one who made Grace look better by comparison. The cautionary tale. I walked to my wine fridge and pulled out a bottle despite the early hour. "Want to know something funny?" Grace called me dramatic when I tried to talk about my depression. Now she's posting mental health quotes at 3 a.m. "You could help her," Sophie suggested quietly. "Like she helped me?" I poured 2 glasses. "Besides, she's getting exactly what she always wanted. All of Mom and Dad's attention, all of their concern, all of their energy focused on fixing her problems." My phone lit up with a notification. Grace had posted again. "Sometimes the person you thought was the weakest turns out to be the strongest. Missing my sister. The regret is heavy." "That's surprisingly self-aware," Sophie said. "It's performance art." I took a long sip of wine. She's casting herself as the reformed golden child who finally sees the truth. But watch. The moment I reappear, she'll revert to type. "You sound very sure about that." "Because I know the script." I pulled up my email and typed a response to Dad. "Dear Dad, funny how family drama only counts when it affects Grace. My drama was just attention-seeking, remember? But don't worry. I'm doing exactly what you always wanted. I'm staying out of the way. Elizabeth." After hitting send, I turned to Sophie. Want to know the best part? They think this is my rock bottom. They're waiting for me to crack, to come crawling back begging for help. Isn't that what Grace is doing now? Exactly. I smiled, remembering the stack of cash in my safe upstairs. But unlike Grace, I don't need their help anymore. I just need them to understand what it feels like to be the one asking for it. Sophie's phone buzzed one more time. Her eyes widened at the screen. What now? I asked. Grace just posted again. It's a photo of you two as kids. The caption says, I know where you are. We need to talk. I raised my glass to the ocean view. No, Grace. For the first time in my life, we really don't. The familiar scent of Mum's pot roast hit me as I walked through my childhood home's front door. Some things never change. The family photos, mostly Grace. The carefully arranged furniture. The weight of expectations pressing down like a physical thing. Elizabeth! Mum rushed forward, arms outstretched. She stopped short when she saw me. Your hair! And is that Chanel? I smoothed down my black dress. Good eye. You look... She struggled for words. Different. That's what happens when you don't see someone for a month. I stepped past her into the dining room, where Dad and Grace were already seated. Grace's perfect makeup couldn't quite hide her dark circles. Her designer blouse had a small coffee stain she hadn't noticed. The golden child was tarnishing after all. Lizzie! She stood up, voice trembling. Where have you been? Around. I took my old seat, noting the wine was already poured. Nice post, by the way. Very raw. Very authentic. She flinched. Elizabeth? Dad cleared his throat. We're worried about you. Really? I took a sip of wine. I'm doing great, actually. New place, new outlook. Speaking of which, Mum, this pot roast smells amazing. Just like the one you made for Grace's promotion dinner. You know, the night I was in the emergency room. Mum's hands shook as she served the food. Sweetheart, you know we would have come if we'd known you were really sick. You did know. I showed you the hospital bracelet. Let's not dwell on the past, Dad interjected. Why not? The past is so educational. I turned to Grace. Remember when you crashed Dad's car and blamed me? I was grounded for 2 months because my irresponsibility was a bad influence on you. I was 17, Grace whispered. I was scared. And I was your convenient scapegoat. I cut into my pot roast. Perfect as always, Mom. What have you been doing with yourself? Dad asked, clearly trying to change the subject. I dabbed my lips with the napkin. Everything I wasn't allowed to before. Is that why you're dressed like that? Mom gestured at my outfit. Trying to prove something? Not trying. Succeeding. I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo of a sunset. Beautiful view, isn't it? Where is that? Grace leaned forward. My living room. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. You can't afford a place with that kind of view. Apparently, I can. I put my phone away. Amazing what happens when you stop letting other people define your limits. Did you... Grace lowered her voice. Did you do something illegal? I laughed. There's that family support I've missed. No, Grace. Unlike your creative accounting at work, everything I've done is completely legal. Her face went pale. How did you know about the missing client funds? The ones you use to maintain your perfect lifestyle? I took another bite of pot roast. I didn't. But thanks for confirming my suspicions. Grace? Mom's voice sharpened. What is she talking about? Nothing, Grace said quickly. She's making things up. Like always. Am I? I stood up, walking to the family photos on the wall. Like I made up feeling invisible in my own home. Like I made up being the family disappointment. You're being dramatic again, Dad sighed. No, I'm being honest. There's a difference. I turned back to them. But honesty isn't really this family's strong suit, is it? Grace pushed away from the table and cornered me in the hallway. Did you win the lottery or something? I met her eyes steadily. Would it matter if I did? Of course it would. We're family. Family? I stepped closer. Family doesn't gaslight. Family doesn't scapegoat. Family doesn't... I glanced at her trembling hands. Family doesn't steal from their clients to keep up appearances. I'll pay it back, she whispered. I just need time. Time won't fix what's broken here. I walked back to the dining room, picking up my purse. Thank you for dinner, Mom. It was illuminating. Elizabeth, wait, Mom called. We can talk about this. We've been talking for 30 years. I paused at the door. Now I'm done listening. At least tell us where you're living. Dad tried one last time. I smiled. I'm sure Grace can figure it out. She's the successful one, remember? Outside, the night air felt clean compared to the suffocating atmosphere inside. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace. Please don't tell anyone about the money. I'll do anything. I typed back. Anything? Remember that next time you see Mom and Dad. Remember what it feels like to be the one with secrets they'd never understand. Then I turned off my phone, got in my car, and drove toward my ocean view, leaving them to digest the first course of their comeuppance. The main dish was still to come. The florist assured me the bouquet would be delivered to Grace's office by noon. Pure white roses, her favourite, with a single black rose in the centre. The card read simply, "Not everything golden stays." That's cold, Sophie said, watching me complete the order on my laptop. But effective. Just wait. I pulled up the donation page for Mum's church. This one's better. I entered the amount, $50,000. Under donor name, anonymous. Special instructions. In honour of Christine, who always said her greatest blessing was learning to love the unlovable. It was a phrase Mum had used about me at church countless times, always with that martyred smile. They'll know it's you, Sophie warned. They'll suspect. They can't prove. I hit submit. That's the beauty of it. My phone rang, an unfamiliar number. Hello? Elizabeth? A male voice I hadn't heard in years. It's Darren. My heart skipped. Darren, my almost something from before everything fell apart. Before I retreated into survival mode. How did you get this number? Ran into Sophie at the coffee shop. She said you're back in town. He paused. I saw you yesterday, actually. At that new bistro on Main Street. You looked different. Good different. I closed my laptop. A lot has changed. Want to tell me about it over dinner? Sophie was watching me, eyebrows raised. I hesitated. Just dinner, he added, for old times' sake. 2 hours later, I sat across from Darren at a quiet restaurant studying his face. He'd aged well, still had those kind eyes that used to see right through my defences. Why did you disappear? He asked after we ordered. One day you were there, the next. I was bleeding out, I said simply. Had to stop before there was nothing left. That's poetic, but not an answer. I took a sip of wine. Why did you call after all this time? Because the Elizabeth I saw yesterday looked like the one I used to know. Before your family got in your head, he leaned forward. The one who used to dream big before they convinced her to dream smaller. Maybe I'm just better at hiding now. No. He shook his head. This is different. You're different. Like you finally stopped carrying their weight. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace. The roses. Why? I showed Darren the message. My sister. She's not handling karma well. What did you do? Reminded her that pedestals can crumble. I typed back. Ask Mum about her church donation. She'll explain. You're playing with fire, Darren warned. I'm done getting burned. Another buzz. Mum this time. How dare you mock my faith this way? I smiled and put the phone away. Right on schedule. Elizabeth, Darren's voice was soft. What's the end game here? Justice? Revenge? Freedom? I shrugged. Maybe all of it. And after that? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Dad. It was a response to the package I'd sent him, a vintage family photo with my face replaced by the words erased, as requested. This childish behaviour needs to stop, his message read. Childish, I laughed, showing Darren. They spent years erasing me, and now they're mad, I noticed. You could just walk away, he suggested. Start fresh somewhere else. I did walk away. Now I'm walking back, on my terms. His hand found mine across the table. I remember when you used to laugh more than you schemed. I remember when I thought family meant unconditional love. I pulled my hand back gently. We all grow up eventually. My phone buzzed one final time. Grace again. Meet me. Alone. Tomorrow. Please. I need to explain. Don't go, Darren said, reading the message. It's a trap. Of course it is. I finished my wine. That's what makes it perfect. What do you mean? They think they're setting me up, but I've already set the stage. I stood up, gathering my things. Tomorrow's the final act. Elizabeth! Darren caught my arm as I passed. When this is over, whatever this is, call me. The real you, not this avenging angel version. I looked down at him, remembering how close we come to something real before my family's toxicity poisoned that too. The real me is both, I said softly. The girl you knew and the woman who finally stopped apologizing for existing. Can you handle that? He let go of my arm. I guess we'll find out. Outside, I sent one last text to Grace. Name the time and place. I'll be there. Then I drove home to my ocean view, lit my nightly candle, and began preparing for tomorrow. They thought they were staging an intervention. They had no idea I'd been planning this confrontation all along. In my closet, a black dress waited, funeral appropriate. After all, tomorrow I was attending my own wake. The death of the old Elizabeth. The birth of someone they never saw coming. The Airbnb Grace had chosen was a quaint cottage on the outskirts of town. I parked my car, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror and smiled. The black dress was perfect, somewhere between mourning and power. Grace opened the door before I could knock. Thank you for coming, her voice trembled. I just want to talk. I stepped inside and froze. Mum, Dad, and a family therapist sat in the living room. An intervention, just as I'd predicted. Really? I laughed. This is what you call talking? Please? Mum gestured to an empty chair. We're worried about you. No. I remained standing. You're worried about yourselves, about what people will think when they realise your perfect family isn't so perfect. Elizabeth, the therapist spoke softly, your family wants to heal. I pulled out my phone and pressed record. Perfect. Let's heal. Let's talk about everything, shall we? Stop being dramatic, Dad sighed. Dramatic? I pulled a worn journal from my purse. Like when you told me I was hard to love after I got accepted to college. Or when Mom told her church group I was troubled because I questioned why Grace got a car for her 16th birthday while I got a bus pass. That's not, Mum started. Or how about when Grace stole client funds to maintain her Instagram lifestyle, and you're more worried about covering it up than getting her help, Grace gasped. The therapist's eyebrows shot up. We're here about you, Mom said sharply. No, we're here because you can't control me anymore. I opened the journal. Would you like me to read some entries? I've kept this for 2 years. Every manipulation, every lie, every time you made me question my own reality. Put that away, Dad demanded. Instead, I began reading. Today, Mum told her friends I'm having another episode because I missed Grace's engagement party. I showed her my hospital bracelet from the food poisoning, but she said I'm attention-seeking again. Grace knew I was sick, but stayed silent. That's enough, Mum stood up. Oh, we're just getting started. I turned a page. Dad told me not to apply to law school because Grace is the academic one, then helped her pay for her 3rd attempt at the bar exam. The therapist was scribbling notes frantically. Elizabeth, Grace pleaded, we can work through this. Like we worked through this. I pulled out a stack of papers. Your legal notice of embezzlement, the one I found during my dramatic investigation. Grace went pale. Mum started crying. But don't worry. I pulled out more papers. Here's what's going to happen now. This is a legal notice of my own, a permanent no-contact order filed through my trust. You'll never reach me again. You can't do this, Dad stood up. I already have, I smiled. Oh, and Mum, remember that dream house you always talked about? The one on Hillcrest Drive? I bought the property across the street last week. Paid cash. The neighbours love hosting parties. This isn't healing, the therapist interjected. No, this is truth. For once. I walked to the door, then turned back. Grace, the police will receive an anonymous tip about the client funds tomorrow. Mum, the church board will learn about your creative accounting next week. Dad, your partners might be interested in how you've been hiding losses. They stared at me, speechless. What? I raised an eyebrow. You thought I was just sitting around being dramatic all these years. I was taking notes, learning, waiting. For what? Grace whispered. For the moment you realise not all ghosts haunt houses. Some haunt people. I opened the door. By the way, I did win the lottery, but that's not what gave me power. You did, by underestimating me for so long. Mum lunged forward. You ungrateful. Careful. I held up my phone. Still recording. For the restraining order, you understand. The therapist stood up. This isn't productive. No, but it's necessary. I stepped outside. Grace, Good luck with the legal troubles, Mum. Enjoy the party noise, Dad. I smiled. I guess I wasn't so hard to love. You were just looking at the wrong daughter. I walked to my car, their voices carrying across the yard. She's bluffing. Check the church accounts. What client funds? How did she know? In my rearview mirror, I watched them spill onto the porch, their perfect facade crumbling in real time. Grace was crying. Mum was shouting. Dad looked shell-shocked. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Did you do it? Yes, I typed back. The wake is over. Time for the resurrection. Another text came through from Darren. Are you okay? I started my car, looking one last time at my family's crumbling kingdom. No, I replied honestly, but I'm free. And that was worth everything. The sunrise painted my ocean view windows in shades of gold and pink. I sat in my favourite armchair, phone in hand, reading the local news headlines. Local law firm reports major financial discrepancy. Church board announces internal audit. Senior partner steps down amid investigation. Sophie appeared in my doorway, still in her pyjamas from our impromptu sleepover. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. I showed her the headlines. It's all falling apart for them. How does it feel? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Darren's name lit up the screen. Hey, I answered softly. I just saw the news. His voice was gentle. You okay? Everyone keeps asking me that. I walked to the windows. I'm not okay. I'm not terrible. I'm just here. Want company? I looked at Sophie, who was already nodding. Come over. Bring breakfast. An hour later, we sat on my deck overlooking the ocean, Sophie, Darren and me. The morning sun warmed our faces as we picked at pastries and fruit. Grace called me, Darren said. Asked if I knew where you were. What did you tell her? That she lost the right to know. He reached for my hand. But she said something interesting. Said she finally understands why you disappeared the first time. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo of my old journal left behind at the intervention. Grace's message read, I found this in Mum's trash. She tried to burn it. I saved it. I'm sorry I never saw what they were doing to you. Delete it, Sophie advised. I did, then blocked the number. The thing about revenge, I said, watching waves crash below, is that it doesn't heal you. It just proves you're strong enough to survive without healing. Is that enough? Darren asked. It has to be. I stood up, walking to the railing. I can't undo 30 years of damage. Can't unfeel every time they made me question my worth. But I can stop letting them write my story. Sophie joined me at the railing. What now? Now? I smiled. Now I live. Really live. Not for their approval or attention. Not to prove anything. Just for me. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail from Mom. I put it on speaker. Elizabeth, what you've done! You've destroyed this family. Your father's reputation. Grace's career. My standing in the church. I hope you're happy. I hope your revenge was worth losing everyone who ever loved you. I deleted it without responding. She still doesn't get it, Darren observed. No. I turned away from the ocean. She never will. That's not my problem anymore. Sophie picked up her coffee cup. To freedom. To consequences, I added, raising my cup. To new beginnings, Darren finished. My security system chimed. Someone at the gate. The camera showed Grace, alone, clutching my journal. Don't! Sophie warned. I won't let her in. I pressed the intercom. Go home, Grace. Please. Her voice cracked through the speaker. Just tell me one thing. Was any of it real? The perfect family, the golden child. Was it all just pretend? I thought about it. Ask Mom. She directed the show. I'm probably going to jail. Probably. Will you visit? I laughed. Actually laughed. Goodbye, Grace. The camera showed her leaving, shoulders slumped, not the perfect posture Mom had drilled into her since childhood. That was kind of harsh, Darren said. No. I sat back down. Harsh was making a child feel unlovable. Harsh was watching your sister drown in debt and saying nothing. Harsh was every time they chose their image over their daughter's. Sophie raised her cup again. To harsh truths. My phone lit up one last time. An email from Dad. I understand now. Not everything, but enough. The partners found more discrepancies. Things I hid for years. You were right. We all pretended so long, we forgot who we really were. I'm sorry I said you were hard to love. I was the one who made love hard. I showed it to Darren and Sophie. Are you going to answer? Sophie asked. No. I closed my email. Some chapters need to end. I walked inside and lit my candle, not for survival now, but for celebration. Behind me, I heard Sophie and Darren talking, laughing, making plans for dinner. This was what family should feel like. Chosen family. Real connections. Elizabeth, Darren called. You coming back out? I looked at my reflection in the window, clear-eyed, strong, free. No more pretending. No more performing. Yes, I said, turning away from the past. I'm coming. The ocean stretched endless and bright before us, full of possibilities. My revenge hadn't healed me, but it had freed me. And freedom, I was learning, was better than healing. It was enough. I was enough. Finally, perfectly, completely enough.